We are back on Morning Line. Our guest with us this morning, District Attorney General Glenn Funk. It's good to have him on with us. A lot going on, as you can imagine, on his plate. We were talking about the Juvenile Assessment Center. We have a lot to touch on, but why don't you wrap it up on that? Your thinking then is that instead of going to juvenile court, there will be an assessment center set up where these youngsters maybe that ran away and otherwise can be brought in, and you'll talk to them about why they ran, try to get them and their families help so that they don't end up ultimately committing a more serious crime going to court.
Right. The idea is that as we build the new juvenile court, which was just approved by the council last month, on adjacent property with a separate entrance and not on the campus of the court or the juvenile detention center, there will be a facility where folks with status offenses can be brought, and there will be an assessment team there. It's run through the juvenile court, but to say, you know, all right, what's going on with this family, right? Why did you run away? Why did you run away before? Parents, what do you need? What supports does this family need? What part of town do you live in? Oh, you live in Forest Hills. Well, we've got a great nonprofit that works down there that can help you and provide these supports. Oh, you live in Bellevue. You know, oh, you live in Antioch, right? So we can use all of the great nonprofits that we already have, and we can work with them to try to make sure that families are supported in a way that could make the community safer. A terrible tragedy happened last year where a young man who was a junior in high school, who was a Division I basketball prospect, shot and killed another young man who was a juvenile Division I football prospect. Two kids who were about to just absolutely
their whole lives and very bright futures
and tremendous futures. Well, the young man that did the shooting, right, had 6 prior runaways. Right? And think if we'd had an assessment center where instead of just bringing him in front of the court, right, and giving him a stern talking to, we'd actually provided the supports needed to help that family and to help him. Maybe he would not have followed this path, and these 2 lives would not have been ruined.
And the courts are not in a position to be able to do what you just said there.
Right.
They can't go beyond maybe the stern talking to. They can't require them to do certain things. Or?
I mean, Judge Calloway, in my opinion, is one of our city's greatest assets, because she is always looking for best practices around the country. She's not afraid of trying something that's innovative. This is a model that has been done in 10 or 12 other cities with tremendous success. Inspector Imhoff from the police department has made visits to some of these, and so he's helping try to work with my office and the public defender's office and the juvenile court to try to put this assessment center together. While that new facility is being built, we're hoping to use some space in the Family Safety Center out on Murfreesboro Road to have a temporary pilot program launched in 2022, so that we can hopefully be able to start making some differences right away.
We've got more calls. We've got Reverend Fuzz. Do you know Reverend Fuzz? Good morning, Reverend.
Hey, Nick. Good morning to you and to Glenn. Good morning. I got a couple of quick questions, okay, for the district attorney. This is what I want to ask. Some crimes are up in Nashville, some are down. Could you identify what those are, and could you tell why some crimes are up and what we need to do about it?
Reverend, thank you. Take care of yourself. You see, he's arranged at his church where they're doing COVID testing and the like. And if you don't know, Reverend Fuzz is battling stage 4 lung cancer, and it's been over a year now, and he is doing well. I mean, well, you know him well, and we've been over there for his services. It's wonderful to hear from him. He's done so much for this community. It's good to hear from you, sir. Yeah, so how about it? What crimes are up and which ones are down? Yeah,
well, overall, we've seen our crime rate be level or even slightly down. Shootings are up. There's no question, but the proliferation of weapons has caused our shootings to go up. It's actually caused our murder rate to go up to some extent, though we're making some progress in that. When Chief Drake was named interim chief, I went out to see him that first week. I said to him, Chief, can you make substantive change in the police department? He said that he had been told by the mayor to act like he was the permanent chief, even though he was interim. I said, well, if you can make one change, re-centralize the homicide unit. because that's what we've been looking for the last 15 years. Nashville and a number of other cities had split their homicide units up into the precincts.
Okay.
It was an experiment that was a number of cities did in the early 2000s. Nashville was the only one that still had a decentralized homicide unit. The problem is, if somebody from West Nashville commits a murder in East Nashville, the East Nashville detectives might not have leads on what this guy was doing in West Nashville.
To put it all together again is what you want.
We had also asked our police officers to be doing homicides. Well, at the same time, they might have to put that investigation down to go do a car burglary, or so a dedicated team, centralized. That's best practices. We had seen our solve rate go down over that 15-year period in a measurable way. And Chief Drake, to his credit, said, yeah, that's something he'd been thinking about already. He went ahead and instituted that, and he asked me, he said, well, Glenn, what are you willing to do from the DA's perspective? I said, I'll give you a deputy district attorney to be the liaison to the homicide unit. So the top assistant district attorney, Roger Moore, is in charge of, as a liaison to the homicide unit. I also assigned all 6 felony court team leaders to work with the homicide team. And then I went to the judges and I said, we randomize all cases that come into the system so that the DA is not picking which judge is going to hear which case, and that's important. But I said rather than just by having cases get indicted and then just randomly selecting after indictment, what if we assign it on a rotation where every 2 weeks, from the first 2 weeks Division 1, the next 2 weeks Division 2, the next 2 weeks Division 3, all the way through Division 6. Let's randomize it based on the time that the first call came into the police department about that killing. So most of the time it's like, if you were to shoot me, there'd be a call, hey, Nick Beres just shot Glenn Funk. The police would come out, and that would assign the case based on when it happened. But there are also times when the police might find a body in a dumpster or floating in the Cumberland River, and so that wouldn't be trying to backdate when did the offense happen, but when was the first call made.
Okay.
What does that do?
Why is that a big deal?
That's a huge deal, because that means that on the day that the police get the first call, they know who the assistant district attorney is that's going to try the case.
So they can get with them right off the bat.
So they can get with them right off the bat. Hey, do we have enough in this search warrant to make sure it will be a good hold up in court? What other ideas do you have as far as making sure that we can make a strong case? So in the past,
they would have to wait how long maybe before they knew?
Until after the indictment, which could be
months. Months.
Yeah. Right.
So now, right off the wow! And in practice, has that already shown?
We're seeing tremendous cooperation. What I have heard from the police department is that not only is their solve rates starting to go up, but that over the last 6 months, our murder rate, for the last 6 months of 2021, the murder rate was down from the first 6 months. I don't know. We're going to have to continue to track that because we still have those pressures of that proliferation of weapons. But what I'm hoping is, there are only a finite number of people in this city who are willing to take the life of another human being. And what I'm hoping is by having an aggressive investigation, a dedicated team, good cooperation between the DA's office and the police department, we can get those individuals off the streets, get these crimes solved, and get successful prosecutions. We've already been convicting the homicides at a rate well over 90%, but what we want to do is get the solve rate up, make sure that we're getting the right people, and make sure that we've got the strongest case possible to where we can make sure our community is safe.
That is interesting. You know what that is? That's inside pool. Thank you for explaining that. That is fascinating. Let's take a call next from Stacy. Stacy, good morning. Hi, Stacy.
Hi, Nick. This is Stacy Harris calling.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. I want to summarize this kind of a long story here, and if I might read a couple of paragraphs, very short paragraphs.
Okay. Stacy, you got to go real quick because we got a couple more calls. You've got about a minute and a half.
Okay. Well, basically, I asked the General's office to do an informal investigation for me. I felt like they dropped the ball. The responses I got didn't add up, and at that point, I made a public records request, and the General has an email from me indicating that if such records do not exist, which I was told was the case, it was kind of odd that happened after. It happened after I'd already spoken with one of the detectives at length, and in any event, I asked for an appointment with the General. I have not received one. And I just think that really there should be some obligation there, because this went on for a period of several months, and the proper time to say records don't exist is right after the request is initiated, and it didn't happen that way.
All right, hang tight. Could you answer for, I don't know if you're familiar off the top of your head with Stacy's case or not, but in terms of, I know you're a busy guy, but she's talking about maybe having a meeting. What does it take for someone to get a meeting with Glenn Funk?
All right. Well, normally if someone has a situation where they believe that a crime has occurred, then the Metro-Nashville Police Department investigates the crime, not our office, right? We get the cases from the police department 99% of the time, and we go forward once the investigation is complete by the police department. There are times, though, that a citizen has an issue and they call in, and for whatever reason, rather than just sending them to the police department, that person then meets with one of our 6 criminal investigators. These are primarily folks who are former police department investigators who their main job is to help with assistant district attorneys get their cases ready, find witnesses, fill in any holes at the last minute that need to be done, work with the police department. And so on someone who has an issue like that, they would normally be connected with one of our criminal investigators.
So maybe Stacy needs to be put with a criminal investigator.
Maybe so. If she has asked for a public records request, there's a woman in our office, Ashley Mondelli, who handles the public record requests, gets any files, makes sure that it's legal for us to release those files, makes copies for the individual and gets those to the individual. So, you know, if she calls my office today, asks for me, then I'll get her in touch with whoever can actually help her.
Stacey Harris. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, one more segment with Glenn Funk. Interesting hour. We'll be right back right after this.